Yo, what's up guys? It's Mike here from Airvox Studios, and today I'm going to show you how to mix background vocals like a pro. First, I'm going to show you the lead vocal.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own.
Now these already have the whole chain and they've got the effects on them. Okay. I used those two vocals to make some harmonies. And if you want to see that go down, then make sure you check out my last video. These are already going through the vocal chain and they got their effects on them too. So let me just show you all of these together. Because even though these are technically like backgrounds, they're not meant to be lead vocals. In this mix, for me, they are meant to be part of the lead vocal sound. So let me just show you all these together.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could, I spent the season alone. I gave forgiveness away, that's just some...
What we have next here is a stack of doubles. So basically, he's saying everything that happened on the lead vocal and tried to do it in the same tone and the same delivery as he did in the lead vocal. All right. So what I did first was Melodyne these, right? So I got those four up here. Fortunately, I've already Melodyned them, so you guys don't have to watch me go through that long process. But if you want to see me Melodyne, go check out another video I dropped on how to Melodyne. But basically, once I finished Melodyning these, I copied them and I put them over to the other two hooks. So that's technically my first group of backgrounds. Okay, so we're sitting here with the backgrounds Melodyned. Let's check out the stack with those in it.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could, I spent
turn them off.
the season alone. I gave forgiveness away, that's just some things.
See how now the picture is like, it's really in the center, right? See how it got wider like that? And that is why I do background vocals, okay? We've got a few more things, but we're gonna just talk about the chain on these first. The first thing I would do after Melodyne is throw auto-tune. Since these are background vocals, I want them to be tuned pretty tight, like where they definitely sound robotic. That's just kind of the sound I'm going for. I'm gonna leave the lead vocal not as tuned, and I'm gonna have the background vocals a little heavier tuned. So we've got this up here to retune speed at 4, which is pretty high. And then I got the humanize at 100, and I just copied this down. Okay. So let's check that out.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could, I spent the season alone. I gave forgiveness away, that's just some things that you won't do. Always told me behave as...
Okay. Next thing is where the background sound really starts to happen for me. It's the beginning of it. I'm gonna notch filter, but the only difference is in my lead vocal, I didn't cut as much. I cut the same exact frequencies though. And I just, you can see cutting them a little further. So in the other one, almost nothing goes over like a 3 dB cut, right? Except for in the high end there where some sibilance is. So down here on the background vocal, you can see everything is at least a 3 dB cut. So that's the first thing, and the reason why is I just really want to make sure that none of those frequencies, especially stacked, come and pop out at the ear. We want it to be a smooth listening experience. The next thing is the really important part of the background vocal, shape, okay? So I'm rolling off lows, I'm rolling off the top, I've got it coming down to 4K, and I got it coming up to 190. So that I just copied on down. And the cool thing about this one is you'll see all these other little notches on here. What I did is I copied the second notch filter from my Harmonies, and that's being used down here. But I just didn't cut it as hard as I did on the other track, and I cut the lows and cut the top end off of it. All right. So let's check out what these sound like with just the filters on, and then I'll show it to you with the filters off.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could, I spent the season
See that?
alone. I gave forgiveness away, that's just some
So,
things that you won't.
the biggest reason why I'm doing that is because that low end information and that top end information is really going to battle for attention space when we play it with the leads, okay? So if I play the leads here, I turn the filters off, you'll see how they start to step on the lead vocal. And what we want to do is support the lead vocal, okay? We don't want to be dominating the lead vocal, smashing it with some attention grabbing information that would, pull the listener away from focusing on the lead vocal. So what we're going to do here,
Don't look at me
check them
now,
out.
you're better on your own. I did the best that I could. I spent
turn off the filters.
season alone. I gave forgiveness away. That's just some things that
And you can hear how all the
Always told me-
S's and the T's all stacked up crazy like that is pretty gnarly. And, I am not a fan of that. So what I like to do also is when I'm in Melodyne, let me show you guys a quick little Melodyne trick here. If I open this up, when I Melodyned, I actually cut out every sibilant spot, okay? I went to the sibilant tool and I turned them down, okay? Every single one. Did it to all of them. And I really do that a lot more on the backgrounds than I do on the lead vocal. And the reason why I did that is because of that stacking idea. I don't want a bunch of sibilant information to be stacked because we got 18 tracks of vocals going on for the hook. All right. On the third hook, at least. We do not need to hear 18 S's happening at the same time. All right. So that's a big part of it. And so when I'm cutting off with these filters here, that's also helping get rid of some of that S and T sibilant information that I don't want stacking up. So that's how these vocals start to sit behind the lead vocal, is just with the filtering.
Don't look at me now, you're better
Turn 'em
on
off.
your own. I did the best that I could. I spent the season alone. I gave forgiveness away. That's just some things that you won't do. Always told me behave as if to act as I don't do.
See that difference?
It
really let that vocal, the lead vocal, come forward. So now that we have all of the vocals shaped the way that I like, we're going to run them through a channel strip, right? Real similar chain to what I was doing with the lead vocal, but it's done just a little bit differently in all of the tools that I'm using. Okay, so the most underrated channel strip in the game, the Scheps Omni strip. Now, this dude is a straight up wizard, like not just like a musical wizard, but physically, if you go check this dude out, Andrew Scheps, he literally looks like a wizard. So it totally makes sense that he would design something cool like this. The 3 different styles of compression, the EQ module, it's like the high band is like built off of one console. The mid band is built off another console. The tone, that's built off like a Neve console, for example. So just the different EQs that he likes on different consoles, he built into all one plugin. And then this De-Esser, I use it on, like, every time I open up this plugin, I'm going to use it. Me and this dude hang out every day. I hit this dude up and we be chilling. All right. And last but not least, I went backwards, but I did that because you can kind of put these in any order you want. Another reason why I love this plugin. The saturation. Okay, so that's the next thing this vocal's hitting is a saturator. And after I've made these cuts to the vocal, I feel like the saturator comes through and kind of rounds out those areas that I cut out. It just really balances the vocal, almost like a compressor would do, but it's doing it with distortion. And it just sounds good. So I'm using a little bit of odd distortion. And then I've got it sucking out some 726, which would sound like if you were to listen to the way the world sounds, but you were sitting inside of like a big wet Amazon box. Yeah, that's what that frequency sounds like. Let me show it to you. Hear that? And I'm also taking out some 300. That's just that super muddy stuff, and we want to get a little more clarity out of the vocal, so I'm taking that out of the vocal to leave me with more of a clearer image of what's going on with the vocal.
Don't look at me now,
So here's without that.
on your own. Don't look at me now, you're better on your own.
And here's with.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your.
May seem subtle, but it kind of is. But the vocal is like getting brighter and darker at the same time. It's kind of weird. I'm doing stuff to get it brighter, but I'm also, you know, with a shelf, I'm shelving down some top end and I'm cutting out some lows again. And I'm adding a little bit of like 600, which is kind of close to that 726 range. But it's given me a little bit of this kind of nasally effect that it actually mixes really well with the lead vocal. So I'm kind of looking a couple of steps ahead there with that one. But that's the idea, is to get these two to gel together, the lead and the backgrounds. Okay. And I just copied this setting down to the 4 vocals. So let me play the 4 vocals and I'll turn off the Scheps and turn it back on for you.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. Don't look at me now, you're better on your own.
See how it gets a little thinner? Gets a little more mid-range E, you know? So let's play that now with the lead vocal.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could, I spent the season alone.
There's without.
I gave forgiveness away.
So it's really just this wide thing behind the vocal. That lead vocal's just sitting in that pocket between the lead vocals that I've got kind of spread. All right, after I get that going, we're going to need to tame the dynamics, because there's some spots where he's louder and spots where he's quieter, and I just kind of want to balance that whole performance out to give me a specific consistency that I'm looking for as far as volume goes when I'm listening to it. So we're going to pull up the 1176, just like we did on the leads, but I've got the attack much faster. I got the release all the way up. And again, I'm looking for like -5 to 7 dBs of gain reduction on these. So one thing we want to make sure of, though, we don't want this to make the vocal louder. So see how it's actually getting a little louder when I turn it off? What we'll do is turn these up just a tad on the output. Paste these down. Okay, that's the job of this thing. Just aiming for a good amount of gain reduction. All right, by the time I'm done compressing these, we're going to have like -18 gain reduction, which seems a little crazy, but it's part of the recipe, okay? Now we've got the LA2A set up in a limiter mode. So this peak reduction knob is always the first thing I go to, and I do the gain knob last, because these are kind of out of order in the way we look at it if we think about reading left to right. The gain knob is actually attached to the output, not the input. This is not driving the signal into the compressor, just in case you thought it was. The output of the last compressor, though, would be changing the amount of gain reduction. So to explain that, like, the more I turn up this output, the more this is going to compress over here on the LA2A. All right. So just with the good rules of gain staging, I don't want this limiter making it louder or quieter either.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own.
Okay, it's pretty good. About the same level. The other thing I'm looking for when I'm using it is I'm trying to get somewhere around -3 to 5 on that gain reduction. Okay. This one's going a little over. No one's gonna die. All right. We're going to all get through this, and it's going to be amazing. The next thing they hit in the chain is this Eosis de-esser. The thing to pay attention to here is on background vocals, I'm going to always de-ess harder, because remember how I was talking about the stacking of the sibilants? Right? We don't want that. This de-esser is coming through to take care of any of that sibilant information way harder than what I did on the lead vocal. So here's the lead vocal at like 11 o'clock. And here is the background vocal at like 2:30, right? So that is crucial. Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could. And I like this one because you can see the range of where the hot spots are at. And what I do is I grab this red thing, and see, I should probably move this down just a little bit, like right here. And now it's going to tame these white areas. That's where the hot spots are. So I'm going to actually copy that de-esser down. Okay. And it will actually give you a visual of the white going away. If you take it all the way, you'll see less white, meaning it took out a lot more of that frequency. See how it's less white right there? So yeah, it may seem crazy to turn that knob all the way up. You got to remember that I really want the S and T's to pop in the lead vocal, not the backgrounds. Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could. As long as he doesn't sound like he's got a lisp, okay, if he don't come out sounding like Mike Tyson, then we have not gone too far with the de-esser. And last but not least in the vocal chain, we got the homie Vocal Writer. Now I'm always looking for that yellow line, the input signal, to be over the red line. And this is kind of an older setting that I had on here, I know, because I do not ever touch these two knobs anymore. All right. But when I first started using Vocal Writer, I was trying to figure out what does what on this thing. And I've realized it really all comes down to how hot your signal's coming in and where you set this red line to. That red line is the threshold that tells this fader to turn things up or turn things down. And the way that I determine it is I go look at like the hottest waveform over here. And it looks like out of what we're looking at, this part is like the hottest part of that section. Okay. This one or maybe this one, but pretty sure it's like this area right here. And I just look at that yellow bar right there. And I want it to be a good amount over that red. I don't want it to be too far over the red line, but I like it to be sticking out over this little button right here, this little knob. I like it to be a little bit outside of that fader. And what it's going to do is it's going to turn down that big part. See how the fader's going down? Then over here on the small side, it's going to turn it up. Yeah, maybe I should behave like you. Well, maybe I should behave. We'll move it a little bit right. Yeah, maybe I should behave like you. See the difference between where it was before and where I just moved it to? How that fader starts to help pull that line up. But if we go back here, it's going to pull it down. Okay. That's why this guy is the super homie, because he comes through and does all the cleanup work dynamically that the compressor and the limiter missed. Okay. So I love Vocal Writer. There's some people out there that don't use it, and I just don't understand. I really don't know. And I think you can get it for like $30 on Waves. It's crazy. All right, so let's get into the effects. Remember how I was talking about the idea of these vocals is to be wide, and we want to create a pocket for the lead vocal to sit in with them. Okay, this first effect is going to help do that. We got the Spread'em on here. Spread'em is a super cool homie also. This guy comes through clutch every single time. It is this delay unit by Steven Slate called Repeater. I just delayed the vocal basically 21 milliseconds here. And I didn't actually do that. This is a preset that I just found in here. I just went in here and was like, vocal widener, sounds cool. And yeah, this is what's going on with it. He's adding a little color, not touching the filters. Got the spread on A, and he had the analog button on. But I just don't ever use the analog button because that usually just introduces noise. Although on this unit, the noise is hardly at all even noticeable. I don't see it on any faders, but H delay. What is that even for? It's crazy. So let me show you what Spread'em sounds like. I'll go turn it up for you. See how it's getting wider? It feels like it's coming behind my ears now. It's like, okay, that's what that's doing. Next, the long reverb. Hear all that tail? It sounds good. I'll go down here and show you which reverb that is. We're using another Slate thing. Verb Suite Classics. I just went to the CLA preset in here. Chris Lord Algae. If you don't know, now you know. I'm sure you know. I touched the EQ and I touched the chorus. That's about the only two things that I messed with in here. Add some lows, cut some mids, add some highs, and I cranked the chorus for that psychedelic type-ish that I really dig. All right? And remember, all the way wet, okay? Because we're sending to this track, so I don't want any dry signal in there at all. We want it wet, wet, wet. I have to mention that I always add more long reverb on the backgrounds than I will on the lead. So if we go look at like the lead send up here, see it's at minus 15. So I've got plus 4 more dB of reverb on the background vocals, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's enough to give me this wet and dry contrast between the lead being drier and the backgrounds being wetter. And I want the backgrounds to feel like they're kind of deep in a bigger room where the lead vocal feels like it's standing in the front of that room. So they're both getting the same reverb on it, just a different amount. For me, that reverb is a little bit lonely. Okay, it's kind of missing something. So we're going to throw a short reverb in the mix also. And on these backgrounds, I got minus 15. Up here on the leads, I've got minus 10. So I'm using more of the short one for the lead vocal and less of the long one. And then I did the opposite on the background vocals. Less of the short one, more of the long one. Okay, let's go check out what that short reverb is and let's take a listen to it. Nice. Another slate, Verb Suites. I'm using a preset Lexi Small Room, but I EQ'd it and I pushed the width real wide. Cutting a little bit of mid and lows and cutting a lot of top end. Now, after both of those reverbs, they weren't quite done for me, so I went and I touched them up with a little bit of 7-band. And this is on the long reverb, I'm boosting some mids in the 1K, which is kind of funny because I cut some mids, but we can't really see what this EQ looks like. And so I don't know where that mid cut actually is. I just like the way it sounded when I turned this up and left it at 1. Then some top end was bothering me, so I cut that out of it. Right there at 4.6. And I'm not thinking geeky numbers of frequencies. I'm literally thinking like car radio. You got lows, mids, and you got treble. Or, you know, actually a car would be like bass, mids, and treble. Sometimes you only got bass and treble, right? That's how I'm thinking, and I'm just like grabbing those knobs and turning them up or down and finding where I like it and just leaving it there, and then I, you know, keep driving. So on the short verb, I'm cutting out some 200, cutting out some 100, and just kind of rolling off top end there, shelving it off a little bit, you know? So let's see what these reverbs sound like without the EQs. They kind of lose their life when you turn these off. I can't even hear them as well. They just get prettier, you know? Just taking out areas I don't like or adding areas I felt like was needed right there. And I just went searching. Honestly, that 1K boost though, I literally probably just turned up the yellow knob and was like, oh, there we go. That was cool. And just left it, you know? Now, the next thing is we're hitting half note delays. For sure, these have automation on them because I could see them turning on and off over here. There they go. But I can't seem to hear them very well, so I'm going to just turn these up a little bit.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could.
So that high harmony echo that you're hearing, now I can hear the low, now I can hear the tonic that he's saying, you know, blending in with that. Now we want to make sure that we do the same thing over here, so we want this at minus 11. And we're going to copy this guy down to that track.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could, I spent the season alone. I gave forgiveness away, that's just some things that you won't do. Always told me behave as if to act as I don't.
So now you can hear how there's like two voices with that bouncing echo, right? So that's what's going on with that. Very entertaining for the background. And then I gave him a touch of quarter note. So let's go have a look at what I'm using to make those delays. The half note Another slate. I love the slate stuff. I don't know. It just gives you so much for the bundle. It's crazy. I chopped all the way to, what is this? 2.7 and all the way up to 300. So only just kind of like the telephonic area of information is left here. And I got a nice amount of feedback on it, ping pong that thing, and spread just at the first setting of A. Didn't want to spread that B though. Just spread the A was good enough for me. And don't forget that I am also sending that delay to a reverb. Okay. So here's that half note with no reverb. Okay. See that tail? Now listen to those echoes with the reverb on.
Don't look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best.
Hear how they're like in that long room, right? That long plate reverb is really like making those sound like a texture that blends a little better in the background for me. So that's what I did on those background tracks right there. And then I just repeated that process all the way down to these vocals right here. So these all have the same thing. Melodyne, Auto-Tune, the two filters. The only difference here is at the second filter, some of them I did not cut out as much information. See how these ones I cut a little bit further down to 3.5, 190. Some of these down here, they come up to 5. This one's actually a little bit higher than 190, almost at 200. These ones down here, I cut even less of. And the reason why I cut these ones less is because they're panned to the center. And I feel like they give a real nice just texture to blend with that lead vocal. But I don't want them to sound too cut off. So I just didn't go that far. And that's the only difference between those vocals up there and these rest of these vocals down here. The channel strips, these are all literally going to be just copy and pasted down. Some more of that Scheps Omni. And same thing with the 1176s. They're not copy and pasted, but what they are is that I'm using the same setting of turn up the input to get anywhere from 7 to 10 on the gain reduction, and turn the output up or down to where the signal's not getting louder or quieter. Same idea with the LA2A, okay? Then the De-Essers, they actually need to get that full send, all right? We're gonna go 100% on the amount. And you can see I had it right there at like 230, right? They were copy and pasted. But as we were sitting here, I was thinking to myself like, dang, what if we went all the way? What does it sound like? It sounds good. So I don't need to waste time thinking about it. I'm just gonna move them on down to the rest of the tracks. After that, we got Vocal Writer, and you guys heard my spiel about how I set up Vocal Writer. So all these tracks have the same thing. The spread 'em, another thing that's exactly the same, but the difference here, down here on the center tracks, we have one more kind of a spreader, but pitch shifter, kind of a chorusy thing all at the same time. It's a trippy, weird little plugin called Real ADT. Okay, Real ADT is another Waves guy, and it just sounds like wow, wow, kind of doing like a, I don't know. You'll see. Let me show it to you. I'll turn it up. Without, right? With. See how they're getting wider? And they're also doing like a chorusy thing. Okay. It's fire. After that, all of these vocals again are hitting the long verb, hitting the short verb, and they've all got the same amount. But here's one really important thing. When you got background vocals going left and right, you got to do fader matches pan. Or else the reverb for that vocal is just going to sit in the middle. If you have that vocal panned over to the left, you want the reverb to go to the left. Or maybe you don't want to do fader matches pan and you want to move the reverb to the right and have the vocal to the left. That would be cool. You know what I'm saying? That could be some weird thing. that like would work out sick. But if you're not going to go for that, then you want fader matches pan, so you don't have to spend the time trying to mess with all the pan knobs, and you know it's going to follow the vocal wherever you pan the vocal right here on its pan knob. Since I have this pan left to 100, it went left to 100. So all of the tracks are doing that. That's very important because that helps give us more of that width. Okay. Then they all have the half note on them, just like the other ones. But with the stacks that are kind of like more doubles right here, which are this pair and this pair right here, those two guys, they're getting a little bit of quarter note on them just to add another bounce to it. You know what I'm saying? And it's very subtle. So I'll play it for you and I'll show you the quarter note. I'll turn it up a lot for you.
Look at me now, you're better on your own. I did the best that I could. I spent the season alone.
It's like this. This is the bounce. Okay. I don't want a lot of it, but I got that in there. You know what I'm saying? So that is everything as far as the vocal chain goes. After I get all of that set up is when I then go start thinking about the levels. I've already got levels here going, and what I did was I brought in I turned on the lead vocals, I took out all of the background vocals, and I went one pair of vocals at a time, or one track at a time if it doesn't have a pair. So we play the lead, turn on these guys, and 0 was good for me. Just left them at unity. Went to the next pair. Okay, went to the next pair. The next two, they're doing the same thing as those last two, right? Then when we get into these guys, yeah, I just went one by one, turn them up like this, and bring it down to where it felt right. I did the best that I could. I spent the season alone. I gave forgiveness away. That's just some. And just repeated that volume process throughout the rest of the vocals. And this is what we got. You're better on your own. I did the best that I could. I spent the season alone. I gave forgiveness. See how we got so many vocals going on, so many effects, but nothing's getting in the way of that lead vocal doing its main thing. But it just sounds like a massive wall of sound for, you know, vocal. Yep, so that's a wrap on background vocals. That's how I like to hit them up. Comment down below if you got anything out of today's video. Let me know what your favorite part was down in the comments. Don't think I didn't see all that love and support on the last couple videos. I greatly appreciate that, guys, and wow. Thank you so much. Help me out on the road to monetization. We just hit 500. We need to get to 1,000 subscribers, so run it up. I need them watch hours. I need them subs. Don't forget to go check the description down below because I got a free template down there for you guys to download, just like the one that you are watching me work in today. I really appreciate you guys stopping by, checking out the video. I truly love you, and I will catch you guys at the next one. Peace.